Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to another Wednesday night, as it has been. I've been doing this flex for approximately almost a year. Actually, we're working on 1 year, and pretty soon I will have had probably 25, 26 guests on this webcast. It started out very, very simple, and we've really been able to uh, expand who we talk to and the topics that I've been bringing up, and still exploring arts, whether it be performing arts or visual arts. And a couple of times we've had some music release, CD release, and well, I'm really just so pleased that you've all been following along for so much time. Several weeks ago, I took part in an online workshop. It was hosted by Gable Music Ventures and Ladybug Music Festival. I have not yet made my way to Delaware for the Ladybug Music Festival, either as someone in the audience or as a performer, but it certainly is on my list, probably and particularly along with Beth Sherby as Ophelia. It's one of our goals. But during that workshop, I was immediately drawn to the presence and energy of one of the online guests, Joy Ike. She's a full-time singer and songwriter and an artist consultant based out of Philadelphia here in Pennsylvania. Her writings on music, business, and branding have been shared by ASCAP, BMI, Bandzoogle, Indie on the Move, CD Baby, and several other prominent music industry blogs. She's also a current contributor writer for Bandzoogle and gives lectures and workshops on fan base building, tour booking, social media practices, and turning a music career into a sustainable living. And who doesn't want to know more about that? So, would you please welcome my guest for this evening, Joy Ike. Very nice to meet you, Joy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey.
I'm pretty excited to spend the next hour with you.
Yeah. We're gonna talk. We're gonna. Sorry about that. We're gonna talk. We're gonna play a little music. We're gonna introduce the folks to your music, and as much as we can, so that they learn a bit about you, and we'll take questions too. If anybody has any questions or comments, we'll certainly be open to that. So just let's just dial it back. I don't know how far we can go, to really start this, like 2019 perhaps. Where did you see yourself? What did you think, and what did you see for 2020 when you were rolling through 2019?
Not this. Yeah, I think I had a lot of aspirations. Actually, if I can go back a little bit further, 2018 set me up for 2020 pretty well.
Yeah.
And 2018 wasn't really a great year. I had an album release that it's still my baby, the album of all albums, because it's the latest one, and I'm sure I'll say that about the next one. But
Okay.
there were a lot of things that I wanted for that album that didn't happen, and everything from wanting promotion to go a certain way and it not happening. And so I got to the end of 2018 just completely depleted, and really knowing that I was going to burn myself out permanently if I didn't take a break. So when I entered into 2019, everything was on hold. I put everything on hold. I stopped booking. I was taking incoming requests as they came in, but things to kind of just keep me afloat, as opposed to like pursuing, actively pushing towards certain goals. And so it was kind of a passive year of sitting back and letting myself recuperate from the last 3 years of being in the recording studio, being on the road, and trying to make an album epically successful. And I kind of just crashed. So 2019 was a great year in the sense that it was the break that I needed. But what I didn't know is that it was gonna bleed right into 2020, and I was gonna have 2 years of doing that consecutively. And yeah, so that's the short answer.
Did you appreciate having that extra year?
I did. I started 2020 like ready to launch, and it quickly became a failure to launch start to the year, where I was like, oh man, this is the year like that I was gonna, reinvent myself and really start over after crashing in 2018, 2019. But that didn't happen. And the interesting thing about 2020 was that 2019, as I was sitting back and doing a whole lot of just nothing, like reading and just like working on myself, there were some really, really cool opportunities that came. I was asked by a Broadway producer to come down to New York City that year to meet with a Broadway director to start working on a production that they ultimately hoped at some point would get to Broadway, but they wanted me to write the songs for a musical theater production about a singer-songwriter. So while I was kind of laying low and sitting back in 2019, there was a whole bunch of stuff happening contractually and going down to New York City a lot. And then by the end of 2019, that fell through. But then also that year, I was picked up by a boutique booking agency in France. And so 2020 was going to be the year that my sister and I, who plays drums for me, we're going to go to Europe and do a tour. And that fell through. And so so there was kind of like this trend of like, okay, so I need to hold all of my plans loosely, and I need to learn that, when things come, it's great when they come, but if they don't, it can't be the end of me, because as we all know now, that is what life is. We can't really plan things too hard.
No, I suppose it's like dominoes, but you can't just stack them all in a way. You have to like move them around so that if one falls, it doesn't pull everything down with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I have to ask this question. So a boutique agency, you said?
Yeah, booking agency.
Booking agency in France. How does that happen? How do they find you?
Yeah, well, that one was actually through my my producer, Dave Brophy, who's based in Boston. He is a drummer and was on the road with another singer-songwriter, Will Daly, and they had been touring France. And so just through a roundabout of series of events, the agency that Will Daly had been working with, he had gotten to know them a little bit more while in France, and then passed on my music to them, and then the conversation was happening. We were going back and forth and just working on logistics.
It sounds like very often it's a matter of relationships and how we cultivate those relationships as to rather than just the constant cold calling and sending and calling and all of that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
It takes time to develop all of that, right?
I always used to hate that expression. It's all about who you know, and I still don't like it. But I like that you use the word cultivate there, because I think it's really about how you nurture those relationships.
It's sort of, for me, it's like what you give comes back to you. Mm-hmm. If you go into it just trying to take from everybody and get what you think you want and need, eventually you run out of, well, I think you end up chasing your tail at some point, but I feel so much better myself when I feel like things come back to me. It may take a year or two, maybe longer, but eventually it's a better feeling anyway. Better than the old, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
I don't care for that either.
Too, I think also when in the letting relationships breathe, the things that eventually do come your way, or come to your table, I happen to think they're better. I don't know, I can't prove that. But in a reality or in a world where we want everything to happen fast, usually those things die down just as quickly as they sprout up when they don't have that time.
I have to agree completely on that. I want to get to a question. Mizzy G. Joy, are you a member of the Indie Collaboration or the Philly chapter of the Recording Academy?
No, I am not. Hi, Mizzy.
Yeah. She's been quite active with Lehigh Valley, particularly Lehigh Valley Music Association, and reaching down into Philadelphia as well, and has done some projects in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
I'm not familiar with the Indie Collaboration. Is that the name of the organization?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll wait to see if she chimes in with that answer. I'm sure she's she's tuned in to us right now. I've known this lady for a long time. So you got to this place where all of those fantastic bright lights just sort of became dim, and some of them turned out. Were you able to sort of shift things for yourself? I mean, we're talking about how you've maintained this sustainable music career. So how does that happen during a time when you can't go anywhere?
Yeah, you kind of just have to do everything differently. But everything that you're doing now, you as in anyone who's watching this who's a working artist, everything that you're doing now or able to do now as an artist is really a byproduct of everything you've done leading up to this moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm so grateful for my fan base. You know, they were so supportive through 2020. Tuning into live streams, donating, buying merch, like I never expected. Some people would just be like, hey, what's your Venmo or what's your PayPal? And then they would just send me donations that I didn't expect. And it happened all throughout last year. And so that was kind of subsidizing the live streams or organizations that might do their annual banquets. Instead asking me to record a video and send it to them for their virtual gala or things like that.
Yeah.
So it really was, my reality leading up to 2020, but just virtualized. So, instead of fans who would buy tickets, it ended up being fans who were donating during live streams. Instead of this organization or this business or this company asking me to come and perform at something they were doing annually, it was just, set up my DSLR, set up my, my laptop with my limited knowledge of Audacity, capture the audio, capture the video, pair them together with my limited video, knowledge, and just kind of learning new skills and getting better at things that I had done earlier or before 2020, but enhancing those skills and getting better at those things in order to navigate all that last year threw at us.
Yeah, it was kind of a challenge, I know, myself included, to try to get deeper into the tech aspect of things now because there's no one else to do that for us. Well, some people did have that advantage, but, others did not.
Yeah.
She did answer. She said, yes, both of you can join at no fee on Facebook, and both of you can join the Grammys as well. So I guess indie collaboration, we'll have to look that up and see what that's all about. There's also Philadelphia songwriters. There are multiple. You live closer. When one lives closer to a city, you'll find more of those opportunities available, I'm sure, collaborations. But now, and that's for in-person working, but now so much has popped up. Have you partaken in any of the songwriting? Well, for example, like 4 or 5 songwriters will gather virtually, basically, and someone will pose the challenge song for the week, or whatever the time frame may be, and choose a topic and write on that.
I've never done that. And I've always kind of had an aversion to that because songwriting is such a slow process for me. And it can take months for me to finish a song from start to finish. Because I kind of like to let them breathe, and I like to let songs be informed by stories. And so, if something that I'm going through in life births a song, then I kind of wait for other things to happen to parallel the inception of the song, parallel whatever it was that inspired the song, so that I can kind of layer the ideas on top of each other. And so that's kind of become my writing process. However, I just started writing poetry and challenging myself to sit in a chair and not get up until I finish a poem, which is a big deal for me, doing anything in one sitting. And so in some ways I kind of think that might be how I get out of the routine of stretching a project too long. And sometimes it could be an excuse. I don't know. Like maybe I just
Yeah.
don't want to work on it.
I mean, the aspect of taking a song that you've started, which I would call like the nugget of it, and putting it aside for a while, and sometimes I want to suggest that maybe is there an aspect of looking for something to actually validate that that was worthwhile, and if it comes
Yeah.
back again, then maybe it was definitely worth going back to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
rather
think there's
than
something to that.
rather than beat something over the head and force it to be done too soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like forcing songs because I feel like they become inauthentic. Like the idea of getting a song done to have the song done within it, I feel like a time limit can be very limiting.
Yeah,
Although sometimes you put things in you put boundaries on something or a structure on something and it becomes more than you ever hoped. But yeah, with songwriting, I just like to let it breathe as much as possible.
agreed. There was something I read. You talked about poetry, and I have been, since I had tuned into the jam session from Gable Music, I started following your social media, and I saw that there was something. What I'm going to assume that it was poetry. It was a few weeks ago maybe, and I think the whole thing was there. I'm not going to take the time now to bore everyone with going through to find it, but if you think of
Yeah.
what it might be, do
Was
you
it
know what I'm?
called The Games? There were a few that I've posted
It
recently.
it quite possibly was. It was really compelling for me, and I meant to get back and read it a few more times. There's something about reading the word without ever having any music to it. I think because sometimes it's poetry, a song sometimes it's poetry and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a song. It's a song, but it's not necessarily something you can read as poetry. And this really was. I appreciated it a whole lot.
Thank you. One thing
Oh,
I
you're
was
welcome.
doing was as I've been working on the few that I've written so far, I'll read them. I'll just be in my living room, standing up and reading, like performing it to see if it holds water. Because something about being able to read something and being able to recite it, and on the other end being able to hear it and to feel the weight of it
Yeah.
is something that I appreciate when I go and see spoken word. So I'm hoping at some point to be able to perform them, but I know that they're done when I can perform them, and then I
Yeah.
feel something.
Yeah, for sure. There was a video on your it was a short snippet. It was on your Instagram that you must have created this like a year ago. That was quite funny. You were just sort of bouncing around and looking at like, well, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now?
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So how was that? How was that produced?
Oh, that was fun. That was a song called "All the Time in the World," and yeah, I made that. I wrote
Yeah,
that
yeah.
last April,
Uh huh.
and I think yeah, we were 2 weeks into the pandemic here, and it was the beginning of April, and I realized I had so much time on my hands, and I was calling friends that I hadn't talked to in the longest time, doing these Zoom video calls, and yeah, I set up my keyboard one day. That was one of the rare times in my life where a song came out immediately, and it was done, within like 30 minutes. And it was just about having all the time in the world all of a sudden and trying to figure out what to do with it.
What to
So
do with it?
yeah, so the
Yes.
piano I recorded here in my apartment, piano and vocals. The drums my producer recorded in Boston. Bass, my bassist in Pittsburgh recorded that and sent all of it over to Dave Brophy in Boston, and he put it all together.
Oh wow.
And there was a part. There were a couple extra elements. Me kind of going back and adding some harmonies to some things, and then getting a bunch of friends to do voice memos as if they were talking to an old friend they hadn't talked to in a long time. So like catching up. So if someone listens through the end of the song, they'll hear a whole bunch of phone conversations about like, oh man, this pandemic
Yeah.
thing is crazy. Oh, what am I gonna do with my time? Hey, I haven't talked to you in a minute. Stuff like that. Kind of just expressing the reality that everyone was going through at the same time. And
Yeah.
then when the song was finished, I there was this video software that I'd been using for a while, and I was like, well, I really want to make a visual to explain to give the song, to make the song fully three dimensional, and to kind of just give a visual to the song. And so I ended up spending a day capturing everything in my apartment, kind of like setting up different spots, and capturing myself bored on the couch, capturing myself reading, eating Cheerios, talking to friends.
So you did that all
Zooming.
yourself.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that was a fun.
That's
It
what I
was like a
wondered.
fun home project, and then it took me like a week to edit it all. But it was just such a fun home project.
Sure. Well, and you learned something from it. I want to put this comment. It's actually a question from Kelly Planer. Can you read that? If I don't read that
Yeah,
loud.
sure.
Joy, I like the story about reading your poetry aloud, so I have a question. How do you know your song or poem is good? I assume all your stuff is good, but I know the songs land differently, and writers write all kinds of things that never see the light of day versus things that do see the light of day.
That's such a great question. I like to record myself performing something, whether it's a poem or a song. Record myself performing it or reciting it, and then listen back to it as if I'm, in third person, as if I'm removing myself. So then I'm judging the piece like I would be if I were, going to a show and hearing someone else perform. And kind of taking inventory and saying, well, how do I feel when I listen to that? Does that move me? Does it not move me? Knowing full well that at the end of the day, not everyone is going to like anything, because that's just not possible. But if I like it, then that's what matters the most. And so, certain parts, if I get goosebumps to certain parts, I'm just like, oh, I see what that person did there. If you can. There are times when I challenge myself just to get clever with how I'll weave words together, and I'll go back and listen and see, was that easy to catch? Did someone have to think too hard to be able to understand what was happening there, or did they get what I was trying to do? So I'll ask myself a whole bunch of questions, but that's also one reason I like to give things space, because if I am in the moment and I think a piece is done an hour later, it's never really as good as if I return to it the following day or the following week and listen to it with fresh ears. So fresh ears are your best friend.
Very much so. How about choosing a title for the song?
I
Does that-
typically
No, just I'd like to hear
I
your
pick
I'd like to hear your
titles-
process.
I think I typically pick titles based on what stands out in the poem, what stands out in the song more, or in the poem more.
Okay.
So if there's a phrase that I'm saying a lot, or if there's an idea that's easy to catch, that's usually what I title it. I don't really do cryptic titles or anything.
Well, that's kind of where I was going. Is it possible that sometimes, you can title a song, for example, I'm just going to pull this out of the air. The Who. Everyone knows the song, they'll call it Teenage Wasteland. Well, it's not the title of the song. The title of the song is Baba O'Reilly, but nowhere in the song do they sing the words Baba O'Reilly. So where did the title come from?
See,
no,
I'm bad
does
with
anyone
titles, so
know?
I don't even.
I don't. Is that too, like you said, it's cryptic or it's too obscure?
Yeah.
If a title is too obscure, does it really?
Do the
I
song
wonder.
justice.
Does it? I wonder. And maybe things have changed now over the years, because we're a little bit more. I don't know, algorithms and digital
Yeah.
searches and all of that. You can just type in a phrase and you'll get the song that you're looking for.
Right. It might not matter as much now. Yeah, I don't. I'm so bad with titles, and apparently that doesn't matter for this song, but I don't remember how the song goes.
The one I'm
Off
talking
the top
about?
of my yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
I've heard it, but
Yeah, it's a screamer. I'm not about to scream into the microphone right now, but out here in the fields, teenage wasteland. Anyway, it's a rock and roll. Okay.
I'm terrible with cultural references.
That's all right. That's all right. It was the first one that came to mind because most people, if you say Baba O'Reilly, if they're not rock or who, classic rock aficionado, they're not going to know. But if you were to play it and you were to start the chorus of Teenage Wasteland, well, they'd all join in singing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's a little obscurity, derailing the conversation.
It's all good.
I'm really intrigued by the fact that you work with artists and work with branding and basically helping. Is that what the Cultivators is about?
Yeah. And Cultivators was one of the greatest gifts of 2020 for me. I had, and actually, right before the winter before 2020, so December of 2019, I was talking with a friend who was yet again pushing me and encouraging me to do artist coaching because it was something I was already doing just leisurely and for fun. I can't tell you how many times on the road or how many times people would reach out to me and get emails all the time just saying, hey, I have a question. Do you have any time to talk? Could you give me advice on this or that? She was like, you should really consider doing this more seriously. And so Cultivators is a byproduct of a number of things. When I graduated from college, I worked as a publicist at a book publishing company for several years, and my job was to book radio and television interviews for authors and to write put together press releases, press kits, set up book tours, things like that, and really just help artists or authors get their work out. And the one trend that I saw that continued after I left that job was, or the one trend or the one thing that I saw that connected authors and artists was that when we create something, we tend to think that our job was done when we've got the product. But creating the product is usually the easiest part. Getting the product out there and getting people to latch onto it and to show interest in it is actually where the work starts. And so a lot of the skills that I had learned at that book publishing company were directly applicable to my own music career in promoting my music and in learning how to just find an audience. So fast forward a few months after I left that job, I started a blog called Grassrootsy, and I was writing 2 to 3 times a week, blogging about how artists could build a career for themselves, grassroots style, because as independent artists, we don't have the budget that big labels have. So that blog lasted for about 8 years, and then I took a break, and Cultivators happened. So
what I was seeing is that you have different options for people to book. You have 60 or 90-minute session, and then they can do it in blocks of 1, 3, or 5. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy it.
Do you find that there are certain people who are drawn to that, or do you is it sort of across the board, a little more random?
Yeah. So I'm finding it's funny because I had this conversation with someone the other day, like how do I go about finding clients, and I essentially said I'm not actually looking for clients, and I almost think it's the other way around, where clients, if they kind of latch on to who I am as an artist, and how I represent myself, I'm finding those are the people that are reaching out to me for consultation. So, for example, I tend to see everything through plant metaphors, and so this idea we were talking about cultivating earlier, and the idea of things growing slowly but growing stronger because they're growing slowly. So that happens to be a really big part of what I do and how I share with artists. It's never about how to do something and make it a success overnight, but how to build your fan base in a way where, like we were talking about earlier, in 2020, when you have a rough year, the fact that you've been playing for 15 years prior, you know that you'll make it through okay because you've worked for a really long time and really devoted that time to your fans, which is my story. And so we talk about how to apply that idea to every aspect of what you're doing, whether it's the beginning, whether it's creating a project from start to finish or really creating a career from start to finish.
Can you help artists with when you talk about their branding? I'm a graphic designer by trade. Aside from so those two things they've been sort of parallel careers for me. But as a graphic designer, I know that a brand isn't just the visual. There's more to it than that. I'm going to assume you have some good knowledge on that. What can you shed? What kind of light can you shed on that as far as branding? We'll just take a singer-songwriter.
Yeah, a brand is definitely not just a visual thing. I think the way I see it, a brand is really about identity and knowing who you are as an artist. And your fans can tell if you're not being authentic. And I think independent artists, we get really nervous about the idea of branding and rebranding and like changing your image. But it's something that, for me last fall, I ended up rebranding. Before I was, loves people, hates shoes, makes music, because I've been going barefoot now for 15 some years. Like I play barefoot from day one. But I was realizing that because of the pandemic and just a number of different things, I was working more with my hands and creating visual art. I was expressing and kind of exploring music and storytelling through movement, so dancing. So all of those things lent themselves to this idea of mover, maker, shifter, shaker. So, which is kind of my new,
I like it.
Whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
I like the alliteration. It's great.
Yeah. And so all that to say, branding is really just you expressed to the world, and how you express that can be in color. It can be in how you're sharing what you do. It can be in, the words you're writing, the movements you're making, the songs you're singing. I really think at the end of the day, it's just finding a way to to extend yourself visually and virtually in whatever form that takes. So I think that we can try and limit it and think of it as, this font or these colors or these images and this logo. But I personally think it's really an extension of who you are.
Absolutely. There have been a few things that have, for lack of any other word, sort of annoyed me over the course of the last year or so as the social media. Instagram, for example, has those stories where you can add graphics, which are, in my opinion, and I do this very carefully, they're a bit of a distraction rather than a benefit to getting your message across if you're actually trying to get a message across or build a story, which is part of what branding is as well.
I'm totally going to have to agree with you. I don't know how long stories have been around, maybe a few years or so.
Are they that long?
I think so at this point.
No.
But I only just started using stories about a month and a half ago for the same reason. I was like, I don't understand. It's just all messy and busy,
Yeah.
and I don't know what's happening here. So I kind of
Yeah.
I kind of
Okay.
like jump onto those bandwagons later than I usually than I
Yeah.
should, you know. But I agree with you.
The only benefit I saw to it was, for lack of a better word, a way to share. For example, the video of yours that I was referring to. I can't remember the name again. Darn it.
Wearing love. Oh, all
No,
the
the
time
other
in the
one.
world.
Yeah, all the time in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted people to. I really wanted to share it. I wanted people to see that. I thought it was really creative. I thought it was funny. I thought it was great work, and so I put that in my Instagram story so that someone might click on it and get the benefit of enjoying that as well. But with all the different, blinking lights and bouncing things, and I just I just find it to be a distraction
Yeah.
from what we're really trying to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when I
Kelly
share a
Planer,
story, I
she
try and keep it simple.
see that Kelly Planer hates the Facebook stories too. Oh, so all right. So if folks want to know about the cultivators, which I think is really worthwhile, guess there's the link right there. I can put it in the comments as well, and y'all can click on it, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have. So you brought up the perfect segue. You brought up "Wearing Love" as a song, and we're going to share that. We're going to share that video. People can. We're just going to sit back and enjoy it and watch the whole thing. And this is you're dancing in this, right?
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
my dancing debut, for lack of a better
How'd this
term.
come about?
Yeah, I put Wearing Love out last year at the end of the year, and as we all know, 2020 was a really rocky year, and on every single level. And I found myself, jumping online every day and just getting frustrated with how people were talking to each other. Not necessarily about what people were talking about, but how people were talking to each other. And I think after a year of screens, or maybe half a year at that point, it's like you can get so used to forgetting that people are human, that you begin to talk to them like, they're not worth your time, or what you have to say is more important than what they have to say. And there were so many rocky conversations to be had last year, politically, racially, justice-wise, and so at the end of the day, I still wholeheartedly believe that the average person wants the same thing, and that's in America, to live in a country, to take care of their families, to love each other, to be loved, and to be free,
Yeah.
if we can simplify it.
Yeah.
But we all believe there are different ways to do that. And the moment when you can't have conversations about that anymore, and the moment when you can justify canceling people out of your life because they don't agree with you, I think that's where we get ourselves in trouble, and we dig holes that we can't climb out of. So that really was the premise of Wearing Love. And I actually wrote the song in 2019 after a really crappy family vacation. And yeah, I wrote it that fall, and then at the very beginning of the pandemic, I finished it. Or right before the pandemic, I finished it that February. And then as the year played out, I realized, oh my gosh, this is not even a song about my family anymore. It's not even a song about me trying to forgive, different people, and trying to figure out how to live with people that I don't always like, And, when you kind of zoom out and look at everything from a macro perspective, this is no longer a song about me, but it's a song about everyone. So that's really how Wearing Love came about. And because I also love superhero movies more than anything, the whole idea of the song was, what would it look like if love was my cape? You know, if I could like walk out the door with this, you know, shield of love that should like that helped me treat people better, but also prevented me from getting offended so easily by anything anyone says, you know. And so yeah, that is
Yeah.
the song,
Oh.
the whole song. So we tried to figure out how do we actually do that in a music video.
Before we play it, I have one question.
Yeah.
In developing something like this, because there's a lot of concept going on here, and maybe there's no answer to this, but what comes first, the words or the music?
A little bit of both. For me, at least, my songwriting process is always a little bit of both. And so for this project, it was the chorus, I guess. How many, how can I, why is it me all the time? And that was kind of me asking myself and asking how many times do I have to keep forgiving? How can I keep forgiving? And why does it feel like I'm having to forgive all the time? Why does it feel like I have to keep doing this over and over and over again? And is this really what relationships are? You know, you fight, you have conflict because two people are never always going to be perfectly aligned because we all have our differences and preferences and things. And so, yeah, I think I kept circling around those words over and over again, trying to figure out how to do that for myself, and then asking how are we going to actually do that in the country. So I think the tension of that question showed up in the red and blue that worked itself throughout the whole video, the colors, and the gold, which for me is kind of like when you kind of hit that sweet spot and you learn how to love no matter what. That's ultimately what the gold represents in the music video, and that showed up in a couple different things, from the lighting to the clothing to this huge paper mache globe that took a few weeks to make and paint and things like that. And so and then, I mean, I could go on and talk about different elements in the video, but that's kind of the heart of it. And
Okay.
it was a tug of war song to finish, and a tug of war song to visualize.
All right, well, let's get to it now.
Oh, you say I can't take anymore. In my head it plays like a broken record. How many, how can I, why is it me all the time? How many, how can I, why is it me all the time? Keep your words, they won't fix anything. All that works is the love that you bring. Oh, you say I can't take anymore. In my head it plays like a broken record. And you say, how many, how can I, why is it me all the time? How many, how can I, why is it me all the time? Slow your breathing, no more scheming, quit competing, just love. Ooh, slow your breathing. and everyone will wonder you did not go under. You were undercover. We're in love. Keep your words, they won't fix anything. All that works is the love that you bring.
Wow. That last note, and just as a singer, I know what breath means, how important breath is, and especially when you get to the end of a phrase, and like that at the very end of the song, it was just perfect. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
All of that was the production is just incredible on that. Where did you where was it all shot? Like, where was the video shot?
Yeah, thank you so much. Cursive Films, my good friend Michael Rothermole in Lancaster, PA, an amazing videographer, and I just love how he thinks. And he has such a great eye for beauty. And when I reached out to him because of his photography work, and I knew that he did video work, but I knew that I wanted someone who could make the video come alive in color. And so my thought was, eventually, he'll ultimately, find a videographer, but he'll be the one who's making it all happen, like directing it and producing it, which is exactly what happened. He is a videographer as well, but I just wanted someone who could give attention to detail and color and ideas and just concept. And so working with him on the ideas and having him just flesh things out and say, well, how about we do this way? And how about instead of, bringing this prop in, we use light instead to make this idea happen. So, and he just has such a beautiful way of bringing the right grouping of people together to work on a project. So everyone who was part of the project brought something unique to the table and just brought such expertise. So I definitely encourage everyone to check out Cursive Films online and check out their work.
Cursive as in like cursive handwriting?
Writing, yeah.
Cursive Films. All right, I'm just going to put Cursive Films. I'm putting this in the comments so that we can give credit where it is due. And that's in Lancaster?
They're in Lancaster, PA.
Yeah. There's so much trust involved in all of that. Where there's music production, video production, there's so much trust because can't always go back and do it over again.
It's so true. I had a short list. I only had one name on the list of who I wanted to work with, and I was like, I hope he can do it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is beautiful. So, do you foresee getting back out with, the real live thing
Playing out.
anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited because I have a handful of things that are booked now for this year. I actually just did a string of house concerts, a bunch of dates in Florida last month, and that was really really special. They were all outdoor house concerts, people's lawns. It was mostly an older demographic, in the 55 to like 75 range. And
I fall in there.
what's that? Yeah.
I fall in that category.
Yeah, which kind of happens to be my demographic, I guess, these days.
Yeah.
I think because I end up doing a lot of storytelling and such. But yeah, it just I'm really loving I've really loved the quiet that the last year has given me, and just time to really just work on different things. And so while I missed playing shows, I didn't miss touring. But after that trip last month, I was like, I am so ready. I don't want to be going crazy and going everywhere all the time, but I didn't realize how much I missed it.
I think that's a common thread from
Yeah.
other folks I've spoken to. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I have absolutely enjoyed all of this and the flow of the conversation, and I think some really important points we brought up. And Mizzy followed up with our question. She said Pete Townsend originally wrote Baba O'Reilly for his Lifehouse project, which was a rock opera intended as the follow-up to The Who's 1969 opera Tommy. The song's title combines the names of Meher Baba and Terry Riley, two of Townsend's philosophical and musical mentors. Well, thank you so much. Now I know. I have a feeling that is like the Wikipedia definition, and that's okay too. That's good. Now I know. And now I have to memorize that. Every time I play that song, I'm going to tell people the story. Yeah. Okay. Whew. Joy. What a pleasure. And,
Thank you.
And I'm going to keep an eye out for when you make your way closer to us here in the Lehigh Valley. Have you played up in this area?
I have. I've done a couple things.
thought so.
I'm totally blanking on this art center up that way.
Steel Stacks?
But I have.
The Music Fest Cafe?
No, but I have done Steel Stacks and Music Fest, and
Yeah.
I will be at Music Fest this year. So
You
I'm really
will?
looking forward to returning. Yeah,
I will
so-
watch for that.
I don't think I was supposed to say that yet, but they'll
That's
probably
okay.
not
It's
watch this.
That's okay. We don't know what formation it's going to take yet this year.
Yeah.
I have my own date booked as well, and there are I know, right? There's details that we don't know all the details yet. We're just like,
Yeah.
okay, we're ready, and whatever shape it takes, right? We're
Right.
ready to do for the benefit of
forward to
everybody.
it.
Yeah.
It's true.
Excellent. Yeah. So, all right, I'll keep an eye out for that
For
in
sure.
August.
For
We'll look
sure.
for you, and hopefully I'll get to meet you in person
Yeah.
then. Great. All right. Is there anything you want to close with? Any important things we don't want to forget?
No,
No?
I think we covered it all.
All right. Beautiful. All right. Thank you very, very
Thanks
much.
for having me.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. That was wonderful. Yes. Very enjoyable. Well, I look forward to it. Seeing Joy Ike at Music Fest this year, whatever formation that might take. And very exciting. Next week, I have we're calling this a listening party. My friend Alex Radis, who many of you know, if you've been following my music as well, and Alex here in the Lehigh Valley, he has a new project, which might be some formation of something that he's done before, but he's working with Dave Cahill, and they have a project and album release called Hot for Robot, and we're going to have an album release and listening party next Wednesday right here, very same time, 7:30, over Facebook and YouTube. Well, I'm Dina Hall. I've enjoyed this very much, and I just want to remind you that sometimes folks are inclined to send a tip or donation because this program truly is just a labor of love for me, as I have done over the course of the year. But 10% of any tips donated go to Turning Point of the Lehigh Valley. And that is an agency that provides resources and funding and other necessary services for victims of domestic violence and other forms of domestic abuse. And all that stays right here, very close to home in the Lehigh Valley. So if you're so inclined, on either PayPal or Venmo, and it is, I'm going to put it right there on the screen, it is Dina Hall 2020. And again, 10% of any of that goes to Turning Point of the Lehigh Valley. Well, thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.